Hello and welcome to What the Lux with me, Fred Moore.
And me, Anand Sharma.
Together we lead Matter of Form, a design consultancy specialising in brand, digital experience and content. And this is a podcast that calls time on tired ideas of luxury.
Alongside industry luminaries and thought leaders, we explore what truly defines category-leading products and services.
Today on What the Lux, we're joined by Hinesh Shah, General Manager of Diageo Luxury Company, the new division growing some of the world's most celebrated spirits brands here in the UK. From Johnnie Walker and Casamigos to Don Julio and Ciroc, Hinesh and his team are elevating the category through culture, experience and bold creativity. With nearly 14 years at Diageo and a deep passion for brand building, Hinesh brings us inside the next era of luxury drinking. Hinesh, welcome to the podcast today.
Absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. This is a great topic. I think maybe there are some people out there who don't know the brands we're going to talk about it, but I suspect not that many. But my first question is, I'd love to know what first brought you into the world of spirits and what's kept you at Diageo for such a long time, over a decade?
Yeah, it's actually it'll be 15 years in December.
Wow.
Actually.
In today's world, that's a
very long time.
Long stint.
A very long time. So what brought me into the world of spirits, my first foray into spirits was with Diageo.
Yeah.
And I guess I was a admirer, a fan of many of the brands, such as Johnnie Walker, Guinness, Baileys, etc. And I had the opportunity to join Diageo back in 2010 in London, where the global headquarters is. And I think, what's kept me here for 15 years is I've just had an incredible time. I've been able to visit some incredible places around the world. I've lived in different markets. I've had the opportunity to work in different functions, such as sales, commercial, strategy, marketing, etc. So although it's felt, 15 years sounds like a long time, every opportunity I've had has faced its own challenges and has really stretched me, definitely professionally, but I think more importantly, personally. And I've really grown since being at the time at Diageo for the last 15 years. And this is a wonderful industry to be in.
Is it as fun as you'd think to work?
Exactly. It is absolutely. It's I can't compare. I've only worked in a few industries, but it's you're at the heart of when people are celebrating. You're at the heart of when people are having a good time, and you're a real small part of that moment for them. And for me, that gives me great joy that I've helped create memories from consumers as they've engaged with our brands. I think also I've been very fortunate where I've worked with some incredible people. I've worked for some incredible people. I've worked with some fantastic people, from bartenders to ownership at distributors, or large customers to small customers. Such a diverse array of people that I've interacted with in my 15 years.
Yeah. And it's Diageo is a great British success story, really. I think it was the merger of Guinness and Grand Met back in the day, wasn't it? And it's become a really impressive company. We'll get back to that. Firstly, your personal journey. You've got a very interesting story. Family, 4 generations, 4 different continents.
Yeah, that's right.
I think that's quite interesting in the context of Diageo and what a British drinks company.
I actually didn't know this until maybe 5-6 years ago. I was doing a internal kind of TED talk, and the question was, tell us something unique about yourself. I don't really think I'm that unique, so I had to really think hard about what is my uniqueness. And as I started thinking about my past, started thinking about where my family has come from. So, to answer the 4 generations, 4 continents, my grandparents were born in India, Asia. My parents were born in Africa, in Kenya. I was born here in London, in Europe, and my kids were born in the US. And I think, there's an internal curiosity, I guess, that I have, an internal drive to discover, to have new experiences. And I guess if you look at my past, it's clear where some of that has come from. But I think what's been unique for me is I've been able to really translate that curiosity, that inquisitive nature that I have into my professional career. So I've worked in different functions, which is not the traditional routes that people go down. I've worked from finance to sales to marketing. And I think there's something about that intrigues me about understanding different perspectives. And when you're able to see something from someone else's lens or vantage point, you just get to a better solution, I feel. I think it's made me a more empathetic leader. I think it's been able to, allowed me to connect with many different people from many different cultures. So yeah, I guess I'm incredibly fortunate.
I think it's fascinating, and it's you've obviously got a UK portfolio now, but this is a global company with global brands, and there's such different contexts and where what they mean different things in different markets. Exactly. So you're well placed to do that.
Yeah.
What I did wonder is you've got a personal connection to the Johnnie Walker brand. Can you just explain?
Yeah, of course. So I talked about joining Diageo, and one of the brands, Johnnie Walker, is always attracted to me. And I think when you think about Johnnie Walker and what that brand stands for, it's about progression. It's about moving forward. It's about striding forward. It's about building on momentum. And many of those values, that ethos, is something that was part of my upbringing. That was, real values that were instilled in me as a young boy on, you need to strive forward. You need to aim higher. You need to go for more. And when you aimed higher, or when you celebrated a birthday, an anniversary, or any type of celebration, I always remember as a child, Johnnie Walker was always present. And as I got older, I went from watching Johnnie Walker to drinking Johnnie Walker and tasting Johnnie Walker. And you can probably tell by now when I hear the words Johnnie Walker, it gives me just great joy.
Yeah.
Because it brings me back to those celebratory moments that I've had, with my family and with friends. And I think I have the privilege, but also a great responsibility on how do I create that same affiliation, that same affection for the next generation of Johnnie Walker drinkers, which their experience is going to be different. So how do we evolve the Johnnie Walker brand in that regard? And we've done a few different things in that space in the last 12 months since we set up the Diageo luxury company. The first is we created a Johnnie Walker Vault, which is a set of 4 different variants, each one reflecting one of the seasons. The price point is 20,000 plus, so really elevated luxury, playing in a very different space that you'd associate Johnnie Walker with. But we partnered up with Olivier Rostein, the French creative director, with our master distiller, Emma Walker, to really bring that kind of craftsmanship, story, and bringing fashion and whiskey together to break through in a really different space.
Which brings us to the point, of course. So previously, Diageo had just amazing brands, but it wasn't saying this is luxury, this isn't. Why has Diageo carved out a luxury portfolio within their portfolio?
A few reasons. One, we've got these incredible brands in our portfolio. We talked about a few of them, but if you think about brands like Singleton or Oban or Barora or Port Ellen, these are incredible brands that we probably haven't done them justice. And we've also, not only have we got the brands, but we've got incredible brand homes. So you can actually visit these places, incredible places, and we should figure out how we do that with yourself and many of your listeners. But it's how do you get consumers into your brand, not just tasting it, but seeing where it's made, how it's made, the story, the history behind that.
Which is a very simple but profound point, which is you're not just a label on top of the same things. There's a history, there's a place. Obviously, most comes alive in Scotland, I suppose, in our minds. With the distilleries, but these are real places with real people and real history.
People that have worked there for generations.
Yes.
And even in, if you look at if we go Mexico the other way and we go Don Julio, and the heritage and history that we have, in Guadalajara and Jalisco, where Don Julio is made. So I think we've had these incredible brands, we've got these incredible brand homes, we've got these incredible stories. It's really about how do we really shout and share them with the world in a different way. And I think you're probably going to see more of that. The premiumization trend is one that we believe in, is one that we've seen in the industry for the last 30, 40 years. We believe it will continue. It's really about us investing ahead with these brands and make consumers aware of just not the brand, but the experiences that you can have with those brands.
Yeah, and so you pretty much answered this, but it's the obvious but difficult question is that how would you succinctly define luxury in spirits?
Yeah, it's I think actually when you think about luxury spirits, or when you've historically thought about luxury spirits, there's a few things that come to my mind. And if you look back, actually, we were looking back at this a few weeks ago. If you look at some of the marketing or some of the adverts that were created 30, 40 years ago, it was very masculine, I would say.
Yeah.
It was very rigid. And I think when we think about luxury in Diageo now, it's about accessibility. It's about innovation. It's about partnership, but more importantly, it's about elevating the experience and craftsmanship. And how do you really bring that to life to a consumer?
Yeah, and innovation's an interesting point, because I think if you said to most people, spirits and innovation, they'd probably look at you and go, what do you mean?
Yeah.
So what do you mean?
When I say innovation, we have a consumer base which is very loyal to us. But as we look to grow the brand, as we look to get our brands in more consumers' hands, you need to go meet the consumer where they are. And what trends are trending within the industry, and how do your brand show up in those spaces? For example, we are partnered up through Johnnie Walker with Live Nation. So we're showing up at places like British Summertime, Altitude, etc. So we're really at the heart of music. And during those festivals, you can actually purchase a ready-to-drink Johnnie Walker lemonade. And it's not about, okay, Johnnie Walker's there with music. It's more about when you're there, how do you elevate your experience during that music festival by enjoying a Johnnie Walker lemonade? So I think it's how do you innovate to meet where the consumer is or where the consumer's going, and ensure your brand is still relevant to the old, but also the new consumer.
Yeah. And are there any misconceptions, do you think, about this segment, this category?
Yes, many, especially actually coming because, I came from the US. So I was in the US for 12 years.
Yeah.
Worked and lived there. And I think what we saw while I was there...
Still for Diageo.
Still for Diageo,
yes.
Correct. Yeah, still for Diageo. And what I saw while I was there working for Diageo is the tequila boom.
Yeah.
That occurred in the US 4 or 5 years ago. And actually coming back to the UK, been really interesting where, you've got a category in the US, which is, the second or third biggest category. And I've come back to the UK where it's the smallest, but fastest growing category. And I think one of the misconceptions is, people associate, maybe my generation, but people associate tequila with shots or a very bad experience. But what you're now seeing is actually margaritas make up 15% of all cocktails.
Yeah.
And palomas are incredibly popular. What we're seeing in London, the beautiful serve that it comes in and how it's garnished. So I think that's a really big misconception. I think tequila we believe, will continue to grow and accelerate its performance, not just in London also, but if you think around the UK, Manchester, Scotland, Birmingham, we have some really exciting plans on how we really bring tequila to those cities around the UK.
Yeah. And that's another fascinating dynamic of each market and which spirits are popular for what reason. I do wonder if you were to put your prediction hat on, which spirit would you say hasn't yet arrived in a proper way in the UK that you think has room to grow, legs to grow?
I think premium rum,
super
premium rum is a category. I mean, I think we still have a long way to go with tequila.
Yes.
There's no doubt.
Yeah.
But the next wave of category, I think, premium, super premium rum. We have brands, like Zacapa, but I think from a category standpoint, that's the one that I think could be the next one to break out.
Yes, rum is a great drink.
Yeah.
Rod Stewart drank it before going on stage at Glastonbury. That's his tipple. I happened to read the other day. What this comes to, though, with this the luxury world of Diageo, it's sort of fascinating how because you've created this luxury portfolio, how you market things differently. Now, you've talked about some of the collaborations and partnerships, but how do you put your marketing hat on and present these brands differently from perhaps how you would have in the past?
So I think that's a great question. I think what we've tried to do differently as we think about amplifying these brands is how do we just show up bigger in culture? Has been a big piece of our thinking. And I think we've talked a little bit about in culture and specifically music, with Johnnie Walker, with Casamigos, with the Live Nation, British Summertime collaborations that we've had. I also think we've done some very unique things with some partners. So Perfect Moment and Johnnie Walker Ice Chalet, a high-end fashion ski designer coming together with a whiskey brand, which you probably would never have associated those
Very
two things to happen.
Yes.
But it worked perfectly, and it was a great marriage. And we, if you're a Johnnie Walker consumer, you're now a Perfect Moment consumer, and vice versa, and just showing up and collaborating with them. I think also from a kind of marketing standpoint, what we're trying to do in sport, and I think sport has become a real vehicle for us as we see on how do we amplify and elevate our brands, which are traditional beer occasions. But I think, Diageo will be an official sponsor of the World Cup in 2026 through brands like Johnnie Walker, Don Julio, Casamigos. And while that's being played, yes, in North America, what we're really thinking about is how do we, during watch parties, etc., how do we bring match day margaritas to life with some of our brands? Again, we're respecting the sport, but how do we elevate that experience with our portfolio?
Yeah. It's also interesting the difference between, there's obviously the off-trade and the on-trade, but when we're talking about restaurants, bars, hotels, what are you up to there and how are you helping them?
Yeah, great question. That's where a lot of our investment has actually gone within a Diageo luxury company.
Right.
So, we've added over 40 to 50 individuals that are just solely focused on calling on on-premise customers now, really supporting them on driving their business forward, their category forward, helping their bartenders, helping them get more equipped, building their capabilities. Brands are built in the on-premise. That's a saying that goes back and one that we truly believe in, hence the investment that we've put in there. So our advocacy programs that we have, such as Diageo Bar Academy, on how we can really help train the bartenders for the future. We also have an incredible Learning for Life program, which are individuals who have left school, university, or further education may not be for them, and they're interested in joining the spirits business. How do we equip them to have those skills so they could get jobs in the bars, in restaurants, etc. And premium spirits is a very big cash generator for many of these operators. So how do we again elevate the experience that they can provide their consumers so they can come back and experience that over and over again?
Dare I say it, that's quite refreshing given the sort of historic in the brewery industry of the pubs tied to the breweries, and it was always a bit of a one-way relationship. And if you think about it, they were actually still the shop window for those brands. Correct. They weren't doing the best job. So it's lovely to hear you're doing that. I have a question about the brands. These are heritage brands, really, really loved by many people, but you're also trying to push them forward, either to new people who the ones who don't know about them, or have them reframed in inverted commas luxury context or more storied context, however it is. How do you think you keep heritage brands relevant but push them forward without losing their soul? Because that might be your job description.
So I think you always have to have respect from the past and the craftsmanship, the heritage, and I will be the first to say, a brand needs to stay true to where it's come from and its credentials, etc., but also needs to evolve over time. We have a saying at Diageo, which is we stand on the shoulders of giants, and these brands are giants, and our job is to protect the past, but also recruit the next generation of consumers into the brand. So yes, we need to respect the past, but think consumer habits change, trends change, so we need to make sure that yes, we keep heritage, craftsmanship, credentials of the liquid forward, but how do we also create an environment that's more accessible to other consumers? For example, the BAFTAs is an example that comes to mind, and Don Julio 1942, which is a brand with great history, great heritage, but it stands for celebration. And the BAFTAs is about celebration. So how did we bring kind of an incredible brand with incredible history into a modern day kind of celebratory moment? We were the spirits sponsor of the BAFTAs. We partnered up with the Savoy Hotel, another brand with great heritage and history. We actually had, black taxis wrapped in Don Julio, taking guests to and from the BAFTAs.
I should say Frank, the GM of the Savoy, was on here just before Christmas. So yes, he's a friend of the show. Yeah.
Hey, Frank, when you won an award, you were greeted with a Don Julio 1942.
Yeah.
So I think it's, yes, respecting the craftsmanship and what those brands stand for, but how do you bring that into the future is the balance that I'm tasked with finding.
And it interests me actually when obviously these precious assets, these brands that you need to push forward, but also you can't do anything that would ever destroy or degrade brand equity or what you've built over many, many decades, sometimes more than that. How do you sign off on like a risky partnership or an avant-garde partnership or something new or something progressive?
So I think you have to be incredibly choiceful to the previous question or what you said. You have to respect these incredible brands and what they stand for, but you also need to go into new spaces and how you think about going into new spaces. I think one of them was around, music and Johnnie Walker, actually within the UK. Is that a partnership? Is that a scene that we want to get involved in or not? And that came across, and we had a deep discussion about actually the roots of music. If you think about the dedication, the progression, the celebratory moments of music and how that encapsulates so many individuals. You think about a brand like Johnnie Walker and it stands for many of those things. Bringing those two things together actually made sense, but on the surface, would you associate Johnnie Walker with music? Maybe not. But if you kind of take a step back,
which is funny because you would in America associate bourbon with Chicago blues or whatever it is, but
country music and American whiskey, but perhaps not Scotch and and music. The
stuff that you're doing, either wanting to do more of in the future, what's the cultural environment that you think there's a lot of opportunity in? You've mentioned sport, you mentioned music. Are there any other things you're looking at?
Yeah, I think I'm looking for more celebratory moments like the BAFTAs that are iconic, that we'd want something like 1942 to play a part of. I'm really excited about the partnerships with some of our customers, actually. Yeah. For example, Rosewood Hotel, where we had a Don Julio Hacienda station there. I'm not sure if you got there, but we had that station there, which was great, bringing kind of an incredible hotel group and Don Julio together.
Brilliant partnership.
And with Harrods as well, we launched Johnnie Walker Vault, which I talked about previously, exclusively with Harrods. We're going to be doing some more exciting work with Harrods as well. I think the piece, yes, there's a cultural element and how do we get involved, but I think innovation plays a big role as part of that as well.
Yeah.
Johnnie Walker, we've talked a lot about, but we are launching Johnnie Walker Ruby, which is part of the Black collection, as we call it. So Johnnie Walker Black is the 12-year-old. Johnnie Walker Double Black is the smoky one.
Yep.
And Johnnie Walker Ruby will be the sweet one. So for those individuals who are perhaps not Johnnie Walker drinkers today because they find it a little bit smoky or the product not as accessible to them, we're bringing in a sweeter version. So it kind of can invite you into the family as you kind of develop your taste profile, which is launching soon, which we're incredibly excited about.
Are you out of interest bullish on the UK? This is a market, I think the country's had its challenges in the last few years, but are you bullish on the UK long term?
Absolutely. I think that's why we're investing in the UK through the Diageo luxury company. I think there's a couple of reasons. One, we're seeing a lot of growth in parts of the UK for our brands, Manchester, Birmingham, Edinburgh, but also on the coast, Bristol, Bournemouth, Brighton. There's definitely big appetite for our brands and the data that we're seeing. I think the other piece is, we are a global company.
Yep.
We operate in 180 countries with over 200 brands. And London is an absolutely iconic city across the world. Many trends are made here. Tourism, people travel through or to London. So I think experiencing our brands and taking them back is definitely another strategic decision on why we launched the Diageo luxury company in GB.
I've got some shorter questions, if that's okay.
Please.
Just a couple. Firstly, what kind of person thrives in the luxury spirits industry?
Someone with an entrepreneurial mindset.
Yep.
Someone where understands that luxury takes time. It's not something to be rushed. It's about the consumer's experience. They are the number one priority and focus.
Yeah. And I guess you've got to love people. It's quite a people-dominated industry.
It's a people-dominated industry, but the handcraft, the hand sell, the personal interaction that you have, the way you're able to talk about the brands, the way you're able to bring stories together, because these brands are stories.
Yeah.
And how you bring that to the client, to the customer is incredibly important.
Yeah. And it would be only fair of me to ask, we had a couple of podcasts ago, the chief exec and co-founder of a luxury wellness business on, and I had to ask him about his wellness habits.
Yeah.
I have to ask you, normally in a week, what Diageo products would you consume?
Guinness Zero is Guinness Zero is I try not to drink actually at the start of the week. So if I'm craving a drink or if I want to drink at the time, Guinness Zero is where I go for kind of moderation for myself. But absolutely, Johnnie Walker Black is where you will find me on most occasions, sipping on Johnnie Walker Black. And I love a margarita. I love a Casamigos Reposado margarita. So
does that change at home or in a bar?
Yeah, at home. It's traditionally a Johnnie Walker Black on the rocks is what I'll have.
Yeah.
Me and my wife have various competitions on who makes the best margarita at home, and what we've discovered, it's not as good as what we can purchase outside. So many of our cocktails are purchased outside of the home versus inside the home.
Yeah. There's one aspect of innovation in the drinks industry, and we've done a podcast on this before about digital twins or blockchain or replicas and all of that. Where do you stand on that in the luxury spirits industry? Being able to purchase a blockchain version or that side of sort of outrageous technology innovation?
It's something that we're keeping our eye on to see what happens in that space in luxury in general. It's not something that's part of my plans right now.
Yeah.
I think what I'm just really focused on is how do we just get drinks in hands and give people those elevated experiences. So
the real thing, the real world experience.
Exactly, the real world experience, because I think that for us now is what we're seeing consumers want. When that changes or when that shifts to become a little bit outside of that space, we'll probably need to adapt and evolve. But for right now, we're really focused on doing that in the right way.
But do you think there's scope to acquire new brands into the portfolio still? Do you have that hat on as well?
So I think Diageo is a company that has been built up by different acquisitions and mergers, etc. I would always say if there's an opportunity that we think complements our portfolio, it's something that we'd definitely be looking at and entertain.
Yeah. So we always ask the same questions at the end to our guests, and if it's okay, I'm going to put you in the hot seat.
Please.
The first question is, what would you change about your industry?
I think the thing I'd change about the industry is the experience a consumer can be very different. So I could go to a bar and order let's say, Tanqueray 10 and tonic, and I will get a beautiful glass with ice, with garnish, and it will be, perfect measures, in a beautiful glass. I could order the same drink at another place and there'd be no ice, no garnish, and it'd probably cost me the same. So I think just that inconsistency, probably one thing I'd like to change in the industry of how do we have more consistency of how cocktails are made and presented to consumers.
Yeah, that's such a simple but true point. And there's a bit of colour actually on your point around working in partnership with the restaurants and bars. It's such an important point isn't it? Yeah. I love this question for everyone because it usually gets quite surprising answers. But if you had to give up your job tomorrow, you're not allowed to do this, what would you do?
Growing up, I'm a huge sports fan, sports fanatic. I probably didn't have the talent to go very far in any one sport, but I always thought sports agency or a sports agent would be something that would be interesting to me. How you mix kind of business, sport, and people together. So probably a sports agent.
Sports agent.
Yeah.
Lovely. And then the final question is for you, what's the most exciting thing coming up in the next 5 years?
I think, making the Diageo luxury company a big success, absolutely. And, us really raising the bar for premium spirits within GB. But I think, I talked a lot about my own personal experiences.
Yeah.
I think being able to give, my wife and my 2 children just as many different diverse experiences that I possibly can. That's what I'm really looking forward to in the next 5 years.
Lovely. Hinesh, thank you very much. What an overview of the luxury spirits trade in the UK and some of its facets. So thanks for coming in today.
No, thank you for your time.
Pleasure.
Thanks so much for listening. This has been What the Lux. You can find us on socials at Matter of Form, and drop us any questions or comments on Twitter using the hashtag #WhatTheLux. Or if you're a luxury brand looking for strategy and design that goes beyond the banal, get in touch via hello@matterofform.com and chat to one of our consultants.